Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
This meeting is unfortunately being just taped and will be recorded and shown later on Fact TV. Our internet is out here at Town Hall, I believe. So that being said, it's Tuesday, September 29th, 6 p.m. We're in the Lower Theater. There is a Zoom link, but unfortunately we can't connect that. So we'll remind everybody if they want to speak, please remember to turn your mic or share someone's on. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
No.
Seeing or hearing done, move on. Public comments on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. I see a hand in my rear vision here. Go ahead. You want to grab a mic someplace?
No, not really. Well, it won't go on fact if you don't, so. Hi, I'm Hope Brissette. I came here to, thank you. Okay. Oh, God. Anyway. I came here to talk about the lights in the clock tower. And a lot of people are unhappy with the colors. They prefer the regular white face. Well, everyone's complaining on social media, so I really thought I'd just come down here and complain for everyone who is. What, you're going to laugh. Anyway, there doesn't seem to be a, no one knows why there are different colors. You know, I think if they seem to just keep being different colors and they don't know the reason, if there's a reason to have them or someone's just having fun.
Well, if I may.
Sure, please.
Charlie or Chuck Wise got into pretty intricate detail of colors. You know, there was some talk about, you know, well, let me just, I don't want to go verbatim because I can't remember exactly what he said, but basically you got cancer awareness going on now in the month of October, I believe, so you could have pink. But he talked about LED lights for the clock tower, which I call it chameleon light because it could be any color. It could be green for, you know, summer. You could go for pink for the cancer consideration. You could go purple for the terriers. You know, we're all terriers, at least most of us. And some of the other aspects, whether it be the Fireman's Parade in red or Officer Appreciation Day in blue. You know, I haven't had any complaints. Actually, I just had some people call me that said, hey, when you go to that meeting tonight, make sure you mention how great that clock tower looks, and the lights looks really nice. And those were people, one of them was from Bellows Falls and one of them was from Charlestown. So, and I don't get onto social media too much to read a whole lot, because my philosophy on that is don't believe everything you read, only half of what you hear. But I think it looks great. I think it's a step into the 21st century. The rapport that I've heard from people that talk to me or communicate with me, not only from the village or the town, but from out of the town, they like it. I like it also personally.
Yes, Ms. Wright.
You don't usually communicate with the public when they make their comments. However, in the last day and a half, I had communicated with Chuck about it, and I guess he's going to the manufacturer, or those who handle the program for that, and finding out how to manipulate it appropriately so it won't continue to do it that way, and there will be reasons to have it change as a regular, getting it back to white or yellowish white, and using it for holidays and that sort of thing, as opposed to what it happens to be doing now. So he didn't have an answer. He sent me the entire thread, so that's where we are. Unless Scott has further information that I don't.
It's just the new programs with the LED. Some of it we were just trying out to see how the colors looked, and now we're trying to get it so where we can program it distinctly for distinct periods and distinct colors. It's just a little bit of a shakedown, so.
Okay, I just thought I'd come and, you know, let y'all know I don't want to have a conversation, especially with you. I'm kidding. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be a reason why it's red and then, every night it's something else. They like the nice old color, and that's what I'm saying. That's it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comments? Lady over here, state your name when you speak so that the minutes can be.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Betsy Thurston with the Bellows Falls Downtown Development Alliance. I didn't get on the agenda, but I just wanted to kind of give you an update. Thank you again, both town and village, for your support. Just wanted to throw out some dates of events. BIFTA's working with the Chamber, October 16th and 17th. There's a flannel festival up at the Rockingham Hill Farm. On the 30th of October, our Shop Local program kicks off, and it's our Chili and Chowder Festival. And then December 11th is the Parade of Lights, and that's on our BIFTA Facebook events page. We're just sponsoring it, thanks to Ben Majur and Alicia Thomas for spearheading, and Jesse Bashaw. So they're the Parade of Lights board committee, and we're just inviting everyone. We actually put a article in the Walpole Clarion. They just posted it, so we're inviting our New Hampshire neighbors, any business, any individual. The entry form and the rules are on the Facebook page, so please read those before you join, and we're always still looking for volunteers, so like us on BIFTA Facebook page or email me at biftabfdda@sauver.net. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you. There is no item on the agenda here tonight to approve the board meeting, the minutes of the previous board meeting, so we will not be able to take action on those. So make sure we put them on the next meeting for a joint meeting in December. I think that's when it's coming up.
End the meeting if you'd like, and they were in the packet, so it got cut off on some of the PDF translation, but if you want, we can hold off.
Move on to the agenda to update on the BF Garage project. It's in your packet. If everybody
Just
got one.
wanted to give everybody just a heads up because it's a fairly large presence in the downtown. Been a lot of conversation and discussion, and we had hoped to be underway, but as everybody might be aware, there were some issues that came up on the property at 88 Canal Street, so there had to be some contamination and remediation done. That took longer than anticipated. Also, as we had talked previously, there was cost implications. So at this point, the developer has asked, and we've agreed to give them an extension of time, and you can see that they're looking to extend up and through January of 2022. Their hope is at that point they'll be able to then begin to start some work on site, so you'll be able to see some physical improvements. So it's still not at a point where you'll start to see changes on the exterior or other changes on the property itself, but it's still going through a process and got held up a little bit with some issues on site. So.
Did we say we needed a motion?
Is there any action required?
For your information,
Yeah,
at
it's
this
nothing.
point, the only thing
It's just an
is
update.
they have not asked for additional funds. There hasn't been any other request for any other additional activity. It's just we wanted to give you a heads up that the project itself had been extended, and we'll keep you in the loop as it moves forward.
Any further questions, discussion on that item? Moving on to number 2, review the fire equipment agreement. In your packet. Scott, you want to
This
take
was
that?
brought up at our last joint meeting, and I think there had been just some general discussion. I think Wade had raised some issues, and so the actual agreement we put into the packet itself, and maybe I'll let Wade bring up his concerns or considerations.
So, yeah, I asked to have this put on the docket, on the agenda, the last couple meetings. So basically, it's pretty straightforward. What I don't know if I make a motion or just, I guess I'll just throw it out there. Basically, what I would like to see, I guess it would ultimately be the Rockingham Select Board do, is three things. Consider having the current three fire chiefs work with the town manager to update this 26-year-old policy, because it needs to be updated, reviewed and updated to, with the input of the current three chiefs from the three departments. And in addition to that, as part of that goal for them to do that, I would encourage the select board to include, to have them come with a recommendation as part of that review as to what, and again, this is just a recommendation, but to what amount they believe that would be appropriate to at least attempt to put into the fire equipment fund on an annual basis. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at least so you have a better idea, because I believe right now there's, I don't even know, I think there's next to nothing in it. Am I correct on that? I'm not sure.
Pretty close. I think it's like
So,
5,000
at
or
least,
something like
at
that.
least if we could get the three fire chiefs and the manager to update the plan, and it doesn't even have to be part of that townwide fire purchase agreement, but at least with that, have a recommendation that, you know, hey, we should be putting X amount of dollars away, or at least attempting to, annually into that fund. And the third thing I would encourage the select board to do, same people, three chiefs, the manager, would be to determine a method, and I don't know what it is, but determine some method of basically billing the village of Saxon River, however you choose to do it, for responses that are made to the town of Athens under the Saxon River Fire Department, because they cover there as first responders and as first due for fire apparatus. And they, which is great, I mean, that's a good thing, but they have a contract, the village of Saxon River has a contract with the town of Athens to do that service. So the Saxon River Village, they receive monies for that, but they're using our town fire apparatus to do it. And as a result of that, currently, under the way it's been for a number of years now, the town gets nothing back. Basically, we're letting them use our fire trucks for free to be on the ready to go to Athens for no cost. So my feeling is they should pay their fair share. And I don't know what that is, but I think the three fire chiefs and the manager could, I think between the four of them, they could certainly come up with some type of program that would be fair for everybody. Them are the three things that I'd like to do, and that I think should be done, because they're long overdue.
Okay. Item number 4 on this agreement, you'll notice, says who brings up the committee. I wonder why you're excluding the two representatives from the municipal boards in that.
It hasn't been done. I mean, no, the village of trustees have not
I don't know
appointed,
who ours is.
we haven't appointed one.
Right,
And
so,
the town hasn't appointed one.
Yes, select board
Have you,
has. I am.
has Saxon River appointed one?
He's the chief. I don't know if
No,
the
no,
board, it
chief.
doesn't say anything about the
That's
Saxon
true, it doesn't say anything about the
Saxon
representatives
River
from that.
board.
Well-
But we're not doing it right now.
right, ultimately, I guess the fourth thing would be that obviously, whatever the three chiefs and the manager come up with as a draft of these three things I just mentioned, obviously would come back before the select board for their approval.
Yeah, I don't have any objection to leaving them off, but I mean, the original agreement said that they were included, but it's funny that the trustees are not included from Saxon River on this. I don't know, maybe it was their choice that they didn't want to be on it. I don't know.
That's why,
But-
I don't really care how they go about doing it, I just know that it's 26 years old, and I think it's great to have a fire equipment fund, but currently, and Chief Kingsbury's here, he'll probably attest to this, that, you know, it's 26 years old, and it's kind of vague, everybody interprets what that plan was supposed to do in a different way. So
Yeah.
it'd be nice to update it and actually list, these are the things that fall under this, and that they all agree on, all three departments.
I agree with you.
So that down the road, we're not all beating our heads against one another, saying, well, I interpret it this way and you do it this way. It just needs to be cleaned up. It's been 26 years. And I just thought at the same time, it'd be a good time for, with their input, to come up with some type of method of fairly for the town of Athens through Saxon River for us to recoup our monies for sending our equipment out there. And, you know, how much, in a perfect world, how much should the town be putting into that fund annually?
Is that the old agreement, Peter, that you were looking at?
Yeah,
95, 96.
it's an old one.
So that's all I have on it. That's what I would like to encourage everybody to consider and move forward. And maybe my time frame, not that I really have one, but I was thinking maybe we could have a draft on them 3 items for the next joint board meeting.
Peter, open to questions.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm new. The Saxon River, their own equipment isn't used to go to Athens,
yes.
They use the town, they respond to Athens with their fire equipment.
but you're saying that they use Bellows Falls equipment?
No, they use the town of
Town
Rockingham.
owns the equipment that Saxon River has in their building. We bought it through town funds.
All right, and
They have to
Saxon
pay.
River pays taxes into the general fund that buys that equipment, right?
Through the town tax, through their
the
town
town
tax,
tax,
just
yeah.
like we do here in the village,
Right.
just like you do in the town.
Currently, Richard, the only equipment owned by the villages is the Saxon River Department owns their own rescue truck. They bought that.
Right.
The town owns the pumper, the tanker, and in the village, the town owns everything but the pickup down.
Basically, since this purchase plan for town-wide large equipment, be mainly vehicles, and a few other things went into place, it's been in place long enough now so that almost all the various vehicles throughout the town are now town-owned vehicles.
Okay, thanks. And is the Athens contract based on a per call or just on a per month?
The last I knew, they get, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's either $6,000 or $8,000 a year that they contract with,
$5,000.
$5,000.
And that was a verbal, as far as I understand, after being on the trustees out there for 10 years, that was a verbal
So,
agreement.
I'm not saying that we should be telling Saxon River, it's not really none of our business, or you guys, what they charge Athens.
Right.
But we need to charge for our equipment, and they can deal with Athens.
Okay.
And I can tell you that $6,000 or $8,000 a year for what they do they're getting
It's fine.
it's ridiculously cheap,
Athens is getting a good deal.
real good deal.
Definitely,
Town
because
of Andover's paying over $30,000 to Chester.
Wow.
Really? Okay, thanks.
So that's what I have. I don't know if you want me to make a motion, or if you just want to,
I just want to clarify if I could, because my recollection from that meeting with Chief Smith had mentioned that they get that money from Athens, but irregardless, the Village of Saxons River or the Saxons River fire budget covers all the maintenance on those fire trucks that they have out there. The town of Rockingham doesn't. Is that correct, or?
I think that's, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I certainly think that's something that, when they revisit this policy,
Yeah.
that they could determine that.
that is in this policy, that if the town buys it, the lessee is responsible for the maintenance of their vehicle, so
Oh,
they,
okay.
Falls pays the
Right.
maintenance.
That's what I'm getting at,
on the,
yeah.
Equipment that lives here.
Right.
just as a matter of point of information, when I was on the fire committee out there for the fire station out there in there, I had broached them to increase their prices because I checked with Newbrook Fire Department, which is in Newfane, and evidently Saxon River had gone there, and they told them they needed at least 20 grand to respond to Athens. The same for Grafton. It never got off the ground. They didn't want to do anything with it. So they're still charging $5,000 a year to Grafton, to Athens. And I did speak to Dave Bemis because he's the chair of the select board out there. And they were amenable to sitting down and discussing an increase in their rate, but that never got anywhere either. So good luck with.
Well, it's easy. If it's, this
Yeah.
is, we got to do something, or get somebody else to come to your fires. That simple. Seriously, that's the way it works.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, a couple of questions about this memorandum. It doesn't say it's a memorandum for just large equipment, it's for all equipment, and it
Right.
says so in the third paragraph.
Yep.
That all entities are supposed to collaborate and cooperate regarding the
Yep.
purchase and use of all fire equipment.
Right.
So it's not just about trucks, although
Right.
I know it's devolved into just being about trucks.
Right.
When in reality, there are other things like packs and stuff like that need to be purchased. My other question is,
That's why I think there should be an actual list that says,
yeah,
these are the 10 or 15 items or whatever, 8, whatever they come up with, these are what qualifies under this. Right now, it's just vague, and a lot of times it becomes, a back and forth on
Right.
what's what, and
Oh, so the other there's two questions. One is, apparently Athens doesn't have a mutual aid contract because they don't have fire, so if they had that, then we would do it, because everyone participates, all the towns are paying their own portion of a mutual aid contract, and therefore, we respond wherever response is needed, right? That's basically it, that's what we all do. But, so there's that. And the third one, which I just totally lost, has to do with monies that are raised through the sale of other equipment and that sort of thing. And there's no mechanism, it says in here, how it's being funded. That's another piece of this pie that really needs to be added. If the Village of Bellows Falls sells a truck,
Right.
does the money
Yeah.
need to go into this account? If the Sackens River sells, do they need to put it in here? Does Rockingham need to put it in here?
And that's a good point. I think
In order
that-
to fund it, it shouldn't
Yep.
just necessarily be out of taxes.
Right.
It should be out of sales of other
Yeah,
equipment.
so that could be, that could
yeah.
certainly be something that they could brainstorm and
Into
come
an
up with a
agreement.
plan and include that right in that agreement.
Okay, that being the case, why don't you make a motion that we go ahead and authorize those entities you just mentioned and the manager and then we can take a vote.
So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the municipal manager to work with the current 3 fire chiefs of the town, village, and Village of Saxon River as well to update the current joint purchase policy for fire equipment dated, 1996. Update it and bring it up to speed, and to include a recommendation for annual monies to be put into the suggested amount to be put into the fund, as well as a mechanism for charging the Village of Saxon River for fire apparatus going to Athens.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
As a joint board, do we need to do this separately as village and town? Village says yes, town says yes? I don't know, how does that work?
I would think the board as a whole can make it because we're,
And I'd like to add at the end of that motion that potentially come back at the next joint board meeting with the draft of these 3 items.
okay, everybody happy with that amendment? Yep. All right, motion been made and seconded to have the manager and the 3 fire chiefs revise the 1995 fire purchase agreement and various sundry additions made there too, as to amount of money to be appropriated and what type of equipment to be purchased through this mechanism. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. Award bid for demolition of 66 Atkinson Street. There's a bunch of information in your packet.
Right, there's extensive history, obviously, both boards are aware of on this property. Some of that had been shared with you previously at the September meeting, and we had had a pretty extensive conversation then about what opportunities there might be. Some third parties had expressed an interest potentially of taking the building down in sections and moving it and reusing it. So I did stay in contact with the principal from Northern Heritage Mills, which is the person that initially had responded about that. As late as the end of September, he emailed me this 22nd of September and indicated that they didn't have the money to do that type of a project, and he had made some recommendations that we might be able to reach out to some other contractors to do that type of work, but at that point, we had already solicited and received bids, which you see in your packet. Just a couple other points of information about that property in terms of where it stands currently financially. As we had talked about back in June, we've already spent a total of almost $20,000 on previous activity, enforcement of various types, trying to secure the property, and then also we had gone to court and secured a judgment against that property as well. You can see that there's some town and village taxes that are currently in arrears. And then ultimately, you'll see in your packet a recent addition from our Historic Preservation Commission. They met recently, did have a resolution that they had passed and wanted to incorporate that into this packet of information, so that's also incorporated for for informational purposes and conversation. Ultimately, we did advertise for bids. We did receive 4 bids. You can see the breakdown of the bidders that were, that did apply. And based on our previous conversation, it's our recommendation that at this point, we'd like to entertain that we would go forward with a contract for demolition. The timing is good in terms of the demo contractors are not as busy in the fall and early winter as they are in the spring and summer. So that's why you got the benefit of some very good pricing. So there is a timeliness concern if we delay or we hold off. And then I think the second concerning factor, which we all can see, is just the general condition of that property and the concern about snow loads and other storm events. And at some point in time, if we have a catastrophic failure of that building, where it might go or how it might fall or other pieces of it might go into the street or other places. So it's a concern. We've done engineering work. We've gone as far as we can go in terms of trying to find options for reuse. At this point, I think it's probably in our best interest to at least make this recommendation about demolition and then have the boards go forward with some process about potential reuse or other types of redevelopment on that facility once that building is down.
So as I understand it, the town now owns that building, correct?
We have a deed from the previous owner, and it does list Town of Rockingham as the current owner.
Okay, so that means we have the liability for that building currently, is that correct?
We always had some liability because we've been working, so we've been in there previously. We've been warned and have warned the previous owner about public concerns. So I think if there had ever been a problem, we would have had a problem keeping ourselves out of a lawsuit. But now it would be our problem.
I have
Sure.
two concerns. The number one, the resolution that you typed up, it says resolve to work with the Rockingham Historic Preservation Commission to enter, document, and measure attributes of the structure before demolition. Didn't we have an engineer's report that said that building was in danger of collapse and shouldn't anybody be going in there?
The last report we had was about the roof trusses, and they have inadequate support for snow loading and for wind. So there's always a concern whenever you have inadequate support. In terms of having people in there for brief periods, I'm not sure that that's a huge liability. We couldn't do it forever. But if there's specific things people wanted to do in terms of measurements or something, I don't think that would be extraordinarily dangerous.
That would be my concern with the other resolution also, because it puts the town at a liability risk to have someone in that building. If somebody gets hurt in there, it's come back on us. So I don't know where the rest of the board stands, but that's my observation. Jigs.
I think if whoever from the Historical Society wants to do that, if they sign releases, personal releases that, I don't know if that even counts. I would hope it would count legally, but if it does count legally, then I'd be willing to let them have a limited amount of time to do that, so long as we are not potentially liable for somebody getting hurt.
Peter?
Yeah, Rick.
On the Historical Society memo, it describes saving a lot of materials for historic preservation, etc. Who would store them and who would manage the sale of them? That's a pretty complicated job. The second question I had, Elijah, you were talking about saving the steeple at one point. Was that considered by the Historic Commission and Preservation Committee?
Yes, that's something that's included in this, provided for in this resolution. Yeah, just for clarification for everybody, it's not the Historical Society that made this resolution. It's the Rockingham Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you.
Which is a town agency. I am a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. And I think that this is a significant loss to the town and to the community. It's incredibly unfortunate that it has gotten to this point where, where we have to lose this building. So I think that's appropriate and normal to make some amends for the loss of the building through documentation or by trying to save whatever elements are deemed practical. And I think that the idea would be that the town staff would be working with the contractor to try to make sure that some of those elements were saved during the demolition process.
That being said, Scott, is this gonna delay or cause issues with trying to demolish this building? You're not gonna be able to just take that cupola off of there. You're gonna have to have a crane, which may increase the price, may increase the price. So,
We would have to talk with the contractor, and if there is a change in the modification of the price, we'd have to come back to the board and ask for additional money.
or would you have to go out to rebid?
I think you have the right to modify a contract if you decided that there are
If both
site
parties agree,
conditions.
I
Right.
had that in the back of my head.
Right. I mean, you certainly don't have to go out and rebid, but if there's material changes to how he would want to take the building down, he might come back to us and say, it's X amount of additional dollars. We don't have any, I have not discussed with Elijah or the commission where they have proposed to store any material, so that's an open question. I have not had any conversations about that.
And was any of this part of the RFP as far as materials would be? It was not.
Not specific.
Has anybody watched Hodgkins or anybody else take a building down?
Yeah, that three-story on Green
Okay,
Street,
well,
they took it right down.
This big excavator comes in and it scoops it down. So this proposal or this thought of salvaging beams and stuff like that is just not even conceivable. So
That's why I asked the question, is it gonna delay?
But that's why I think what Elijah's saying is because that's not in the cards, they want to have this opportunity to go in and take measurements and things, and I think it's perfectly okay, as long as it doesn't slow up the process, number one, and number two, that the town is protected against any possible liability if any of you guys get hurt.
Yeah, and I think that this would be a matter of, working with the contractor to try to save what is practical. I don't think anybody would be expecting that the entire building would be disassembled and that every board and beam would be saved, but it's to just try to make some reasonable efforts. For example, to remove the magnificent stained glass window rather than simply crushing it, which seems like something that we normally would do. So I don't think that
usually when
demolition contractors would just crush something like that that's worth thousands of dollars.
When a contractor bids on these, okay, they are a mini salvage company. Okay, so their price is based on possibly like slate on the roof or like a window, if they had a window. So in calculating the price, they take it down, they're responsible for everything that comes down. So what you're suggesting is just not in this proposal. And I mean, it would be, I don't know if you could get anybody to
I don't think that it would necessarily mean that everything would be retained by the Historical Commission. It would be encouraging the process to move forward in such a way that the contractor would be saving some of these things for resale through themselves, because it's more about trying to save the historic material and keep it out of the landfill. And I think that it would be really reasonable to make some additional effort to save the top of the steeple to keep here in town to mitigate the loss of, a building from 1836 that has been an important landmark in this town. And I think that if we miss this opportunity, it's very bad for this town.
Peter?
Rick?
So would the Historical Preservation Commission have any funds or any way of raising funds to defray extra costs were we to undertake saving the steeple, for example?
That's not something that we've discussed, whether we would be contributing, funds to this operation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the expectation would be that we would be working with the contractor, under the contract from the town and the village, to try to make that happen. I think that they're going to need to have a crane anyways to take down the steeple, because it's simply too tall just to topple.
No, if you see the excavator, it just goes boom.
Yeah, they just reach up to an excavator and they
There's
pull it right over.
Nothing's removed. It's crushed.
Pulled over.
Okay?
Yeah,
If you
well,
ever
that's
see-
what we don't want.
Well, that's what demolition is, that's what taking a building down is all about.
Well, I think we want to try to work to the extent that is deemed practical, working with the town staff and the demolition contractor to save some of these elements. I'm not proposing, which elements would be saved, but I think that some effort is appropriate under the circumstances.
Wade?
Wait, oh, Susan's been waiting for.
Oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
know,
go ahead,
I'm
Susan.
trying to catch everybody here.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, this low bid of 58, whatever, I don't have my glasses on, they're on my head, is that, that is what they're gonna do. They are not salvaging a
Right.
thing. They are crushing
Right.
it, and that's mainly, their labor of crushing it and their disposal costs. That's what that is. Can we ask, if the Historical Society gets in there and says, okay, can we do this, save this, this, and this? And then, likely, we're gonna give it to the low bidder anyhow, because that's probably what all of these 4 companies are doing. They're just crushing it.
Yeah.
Find out how much it would cost to pull out that window to do this or do that. And if there is funding available through grants or some other historical preservation funding, I don't know, we could then save those things. But that's going, I would think, delay this quite a bit, going through all of that.
And
Let me-
sorry.
Gary's been waiting to
No,
talk.
sorry.
You've already spoken once.
All right.
Let me get, Gary, do you want to say something on this item?
Yes, please, yeah. So, well, it's a worthwhile endeavor to try and reclaim some of the materials, and there may be some quick turnaround funds, as was recommended, that could be secured, and oftentimes, as Jiggs was saying, materials will be set aside for the demolition team to salvage, to recoup some funds. So that's possible, but it's a big unknown. And when it's not required because this building wasn't on the National Register, but when a building is on the National Register of Historic Places, one of the most important thing that they require to mitigate the loss of history is the piece that where the commission is asking to get inside, take pictures, measurements, do drawings, so that they can record the physical structure and the architecture, as well as some of the history of uses. And so I'm just wondering if it's possible, since one thing we know can be done, and the other one, it's a question if it's possible to separate the request so that the documentation can be done regardless of what happens with the other piece. I don't know if you need to have separate motions, but I'm just...
It's all in one resolution.
Well, there's 2 actions that are going to be taken. Number 1, the town owns the building, so the town select board would be voting to appropriate the funds. the trustees would be voting to appropriate a portion of their funds if they so desire.
We haven't
Now-
discussed that yet.
I know it, but as far as I know, there's, I think, about 40,000 in the unsafe building fund that I think we'd probably be using for that, towards this, so that would leave.
Julie, my point is, it's not a dollar thing to go in and document, and just recommending you, if it could be a separate motion to allow that.
Gary, it's a time and it's a safety issue, okay?
Right.
So as long as I said, as long as we can deal with the time and the safety, I personally don't have a, but I'll tell you this, as a Bellows Falls trustee, I'm in favor of the demolition because unlike Elijah, I shouldn't even say that, but I was born and raised here and I've, long time with that building. And unfortunately, the ship has sailed. The previous owners have done a terrible disservice to the building and to us. And, but that's unfortunately beyond the control of the town to deal with. But I'm speaking, but I think, if the select board, my feeling here as a trustee, is that if the select board wants to delay this and work with the historical commission or whatever it is, the Bellows Falls trustees have no interest in participating in the cost of this, okay? This building is owned by the town. The ordinance to take it down is part of the town. And I think, if you check, we folks in Bellows Falls represent 65 or 70% of the tax base of the town of Rockingham, so we certainly are paying our fair share in that regard. But I think that I don't know who came up with this 33-25 type of a split, but I find that totally inappropriate. And quite frankly, other than doing some measurements, pictures and all that stuff, which, by the way, you could have done for months and months and months, I think the best interest of this town and everybody else is to take that building down, make that corner safe again, take away all those barriers and open up School Street and Atkinson Street to where it should be. So anyway, that's my position. Again, if the town select board want to take this all on and do all these things or some of these things or whatever, that would then be beyond our control.
One thing I'd object to that, I don't want to say object, but I would disagree with that statement because the action for the demolition of that building was undertaken under the village unsafe building ordinance, Jigs, if you remember.
That's how it started.
That's right.
And that's
So
how we
that,
spent
I
a
think
lot of
that's
money.
wherefore the request for the $25,000 match from the village came from. I suggested that the town would pay for their fair share using the $40,000 of the unsafe building I would assume the board would agree with me. But that's where that came from. Also, you gotta remember, the town footed the bill except for the $6,000 for that fencing and the barriers and everything else. So there's $13,000 of
We
that
contributed first.
money. You asked for us to do that because you rented the fence and the barriers for a few short times, then you came to us and said you didn't want to pay for it anymore, and we gave you that. We gave it up.
Well-
So we ended up paying you another $13,000. So I think.
And you've got a school there.
I know it,
town
but I
of
think it's fair
Rockingham.
that the town should, the village should contribute some amount of money to
And we
this
have.
disposal.
We spent, I don't know.
So
I
anyway,
don't know what our total is.
Stefan, and then,
It's, I see the historical value, and I love the history. It's coming at the 11th hour. I was here when some people did Steamtown. I was here with some people did, of course it wasn't us, but the Arch Bridge, the original Arch Bridge. it'd be nice to save the windows and the doors. I don't know what the contractor's schedule is. Maybe the manager does. He may be wanting to get in here October 15th and have it down by the 20th. So would the Rockingham Historic Preservation Commission be prepared to act in that time frame? Is what my thought is. My other thoughts is, yes, it's owned by the town, but I would think that we'd want to have, at least from the village standpoint, some chips on the table. And by that I mean, what happens to this property after it comes down? We'd want to have some type of say.
Still belongs to them.
It belongs to the
It belongs
town.
to the town.
We
Well,
have nothing.
I thought, are there any plans for this property after it is leveled?
I hope the town could sell it and recoup something.
That would be the attempt. I know at one point the school
They're interested
was
still.
interested, but they didn't want to have to deal with the demolition and all that
They
stuff.
didn't want to pay for anything.
So they
Right.
would be after it's clear.
That was similar to with.
Nobody wants to pay for anything. That's
When we were on the board.
important fact, and the town
Well,
shoulders
you know,
the bill, so I
here's some
think-
thoughts. It's on a corner piece of property. I would say it's kind of prime in my opinion. I haven't gone for a license, but I do have a little background in real estate. You know, there's been people that mentioned to me, dog park, or just in general, a park. So, of course, now it's owned by the town, so that's your consideration, but I mean, you've got to think also what happens to this property after it's down. What
Yeah, but it-
benefits,
But it belongs to the town.
right, realize that.
Okay,
But I mean, it's within our jurisdiction too, so.
no.
Therefore, the contribution. But anyway, go ahead, Rick.
So Elijah, are the stained glass windows, are those the jewels? How many of them are there, and are they? I mean, would as a member of the public, GoFundMe people might say save the stained glass windows, and you might be able to raise some money for that particularly artistically or aesthetically valuable part of the building. Is that something within the realm of possibility for you guys?
There's one stained glass window in the front facade.
That's it.
Yes, which is very significant. It's definitely not something that we'd want to lose, and since it's only one, it means that it's much less complicated than taking out multiple. The Historical Commission doesn't have capacity to go in and take anything out of the building. That's not something that we've worked on. We have the capacity to document the building, and we have a staff member who can work with the other town staff to talk with the contractor and try to come up with the best possible outcome for the demolition, and whether, you know, certain pieces get pulled out and set aside.
Okay.
So, yeah. And also, I'd just like to say that the Historical Commission is not suggesting that the building should be kept in place. I think that we all realize that it's beyond salvage at this point, so I wouldn't confuse the subject by, you know, talking about whether it's appropriate to take the building down or not. This is not what the Historical Commission is talking about. We're not suggesting that the building should not be demolished. It's just a matter of whether some of those choice elements are preserved and whether the building is documented properly.
Before we get too far, I'd like to get a motion on the table, but
That's what I'm
Debbie,
trying
go
to do.
ahead.
I'd like to get a piece of this out of the way. So I'm going to move that the village of Bellows Falls contribute $0 to the demolition of this project. And
hear-
see if anyone wants to second that.
Do we hear a second?
I'd like to ask a question first.
Well,
Well,
need a
if we
second
get
first, and then
table
we
on
can
it,
discuss
We
it.
can discuss it because we got to vote anyway. So if we get a table, get a motion on the table, we can. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, further discussion.
I just have a question about the time frame as far, do we know when the contractor's looking to start to be complete?
We had asked them to have the majority of the building, or at least the roof and the heavy portions of the structure, down before the end of November, hoping that we don't have any early season snow. That's really
6 to 8 weeks.
right. We did not give them a specific target date, but we did say by November 30th, we wanted to have a good portion of it down.
Is the school aware of what we're attempting, and we're probably gonna have to work around them with the traffic and the kids playing in the schoolyard over there and everything
You
else.
see, all the proposals have traffic included, and one
I
of
saw
the things
that,
we'll
yeah.
do is consult with the school, because it will have an impact
Okay.
on how we're
yeah.
gonna do it, when we're gonna
I
do
just
it.
wanna make sure, because I know they were involved when we did Cherry Hill and
We'll
Green Street or
Certainly
whatever.
talk to the principal and talk to the new
Talk to
superintendent.
Andy and, yeah.
Yes.
Do you have further?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, ask Elijah if he felt that, a 6-week time frame was sufficient to get in and get the documentation completed, and then also, that's a short time frame as far as amending an RFP to, stained glass window, when I was in there, it's a complicated, it's not like windows of today, where there's a master frame and you can simply just get to the master frame and take this mass of lead and glass out. So it seems it would have to have a sandwich on each side to sort of keep it planar, and then either with a lift or something, it's an undertaking that would take time, cost, and safety and all those extra pieces. And I mean, I remember that stained glass window as a kid, and this whole thing to me is a lesson not only for the building owners, but for the town and village. When we see buildings like this decaying, we're stepping in at the last minute, and shame on us, and now we're here trying to solve a problem at a table that is 11th hour plus. It makes it really hard. And, with safety and costs and all of that, we risk, stretching this beyond, what the time frame was intended. And I just wish the RFP went out with, the resolution considered prior to that. So it seems another step that's just late and unfortunate. But
That resolution isn't our resolution.
No, I understand. I'm saying that it's a resolution that's being presented now
Yeah.
that is after the
After the
RFP.
Back,
It's,
it's out of the barn.
right, and I respect history, I love
Okay.
history, I wish that we could save, all of those things, but it's the
All right.
process we followed is.
Before we continue the discussion, I would like to get a vote on the motion and second that was made to have the village appropriate 0 funds for this project. And this would be a village vote only. Select board does not vote.
So, my village trustee is ready to vote on this item, on this motion,
Well,
or you're still gonna discuss it?
well, what's your reasoning for saying
My
0
reasoning for
funds?
multiple. Number one, the property is on the liability and belongs, the ownership completely now to Rockingham. There is no buy-in for the village. We have appropriated and used the monies that we expected to use unfortunately, during the entire process, which has been about 2 years, to put liens on and do legal documents, which we had to pay for. We rented for a while for public safety, the fences and the abutments, but it now belongs totally to the town, not to the village. And therefore, once it is knocked down, removed, it will also still be the town's, for them to sell in any way they choose and develop or any way they choose. And we have nothing there. What we receive is the benefit of thank you, but again, as Jiggs says, as thank you, we will have the view, we will have the opportunity for the schools to use it, or someone else, whatever the town decides to do. We don't.
So there'd be
But-
nothing coming back to the village?
Right, nothing coming back to the village, except if it gets back on the rolls, and then there's town and village taxes, such as they will be for an open lot, or whatever can happen, considering side. And of course, as Jiggs has already suggested, we are a major portion of the tax base for the town. Therefore, we are already paying. Why do that? So my understanding is we did with the unsafe building ordinance what we could do. According to the manager, this is now a nuisance building, a nuisance ordinance. That is totally the town of Rockingham. It is not the village of Bellows Falls. Therefore, my motion was to 0 fund on the village side because of those items I have just mentioned. That's my reasoning. I'd like to move the question if we could.
It's in your box.
Call the question. All right, all those in favor of the motion, if we have it in mind, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is it. 0
Okay.
side on the village.
The next step we need to do is to adopt this background and resolution for bid award and adopt the bid for $58,693. But in the process of making the motion, I would suggest that someone add some wording to the resolve to work with the Rockingham Historic Preservation Commission to enter, document, and measure that some sort of release of liability on their part, wherever they put in there, or to provide an insurance
Waiver or something?
insurance policy that takes the liability away from the town of Rockingham, based on the engineering report that building is too dangerous to be in. So I'll entertain a motion. Hope I didn't confuse things, but
Downside, yeah.
too much word.
May I first make a motion regarding the resolution of the Rockingham Historic Preservation Commission?
That's not on the table. I'm asking for this to adopt the thing. If you want to do the resolution afterwards, we can do it, but we're trying to get this moved on the table. So if you want to make the motion to adopt the resolution and adopt the bid, then do so, and we get a second or not second, and go from there.
Just a point of order, I guess. The item on the agenda is the award of the demolition.
Correct, that's what I'm asking a motion for.
There's nothing on the agenda for a resolution.
Correct.
From the Historical Commission. So
Correct.
I don't believe this board could, at this session anyway, could deal with that. So it's not on the agenda. So,
But can we put it in as a condition of awarding the contract, that the historical commission, before demolition is enabled to get into the building? And I think we really need to get a quote. We have to make a best effort to say, we at least, this is the cost to the town to do this, and it's just not physically possible, or, like you mentioned, how difficult it would be. I think we need to make a best effort to try to salvage what can be salvaged. I think the reality is very little is going to be done, but I think we need to be able to make that as a condition of awarding the bid, to make the best effort to pull out what we can from the building first.
The condition is an estimate, or the condition?
That they need to, since the RFP did not go out with any of those conditions.
Right.
I think we could have the manager work with the contractor to say, okay, what would the additional cost be to do A, B, and C on the recommendations after they get in? I think it would be better if it was possible that they take this down during Christmas break. I don't know if that's too late weather-wise,
Ooh.
but
Ooh, that's dangerous.
yeah. It could all melt the next day.
It cost us less if it goes down with the snow.
It's fall down.
There's things, there's other times maybe when the school has a couple days off, a teacher's work-in session or something, that to avoid
Thanksgiving, this baby will be down.
in days.
Like that.
Yeah.
They won't take long.
Probably the same day.
It'll be down in 2 days, I'll bet.
yeah.
And it's just clean up.
If you saw Green Street.
Yeah.
So-
They said
so-
they came
so
down
Sue,
one day, and then they just cleaned up.
What exactly are you suggesting? That we want a condition in here that we can get an estimate on what it would cost, but
From the
not a
contractor.
condition that they have to salvage
Just
anything?
an estimate.
Just
I
an
think
estimate.
We need to get a good faith estimate, just to say, we would love, I think we all agree, we would love to be able to save those things, but it's a time, money, and complication.
So then we have to come back to another joint board to approve it?
No, the town owns
only
it.
The
now.
select board would do it at
So it'd be
one of our
town
meetings.
only?
Town
Okay.
only.
But Susan, the point is that we'd like the stained glass window and maybe some beams and, you can't go back to Hodgkins or anybody else and say, maybe a little bit of this, maybe, you'd have to be very specific.
Well, exactly. I'm saying that
What would it cost to amend this contract to remove that stained glass window?
Right.
Right.
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying, but I
so
would
I
say we
mean-
would take the advice from, if the Historical Commission and
But
get
you
there
see
in the
if-
next week, and then, I mean, it seems they're gonna be some will be unrealistic.
Yeah.
But, so then we narrow that down to just one or two things that are the top priority, and then ask for a quote.
Well, they would
Right.
have to get on their horses and do this ASAP.
Exactly,
Right.
and well, if they
You'd
don't,
have to,
then,
I would recommend to the board, select board, that you give them a very specific time frame.
yeah.
Because this,
Yeah.
again, a lot of the bids are based on the time of year. And I'm sure this is slated for this fall, or late fall.
All right, we need to get a motion on the floor to accept the bid for $58,600. I assume that's the one we're going to go, it's the lowest bid, $58,693, and then we can deal with the resolutions, as I say, in the same motion, or that at least to add something to relieve the town of the liability of someone going in that building.
So all you want is that motion to accept the bid from Hodgkins, right?
Probably all we can do at this point, because that's all.
Okay, I
something-
move that we accept the bid, the low bid presented by Hodgkins.
Can I add a friendly amendment?
It has to be seconded first,
Okay.
doesn't
Second,
it?
Well, why don't you-
do we hear a second?
I second it.
All right, now you can make your amendment.
All right, that the municipal manager would work with the contractor and historical commission to identify the most significant historic elements and get an estimate on their preservation.
Okay, do I hear a second
I
to
think
the,
you're complicating,
I know it.
you've got
Yeah.
the resolution here. Bonnie is just trying to. get
Right. I understand that.
That thing, so, I mean, if you wanna attempt to do the resolution, I think that addresses what Rick is trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have to be a more complicated,
So, okay, so we can't amend the motion that Bonnie made.
Right.
Right.
So,
Why not?
the motion's been made and seconded by Bonnie to accept the bid of Hodgkins of $58,693 for the demolition of 66 Atkinson Street. Everybody has that motion in mind? All those in favor would say aye.
Wait, I just want to ask a question. I mean, if we do that as the motion, then the contractor doesn't, they don't have to do anything, and the town doesn't, we're not asking the town to do anything.
Why can't it be amended?
I think you can, I think.
Take further action.
It's not on the
this
agenda.
thing, it'll be part and parcel of that vote.
Well, I think that this is a decision for the select board to make. If the village doesn't want to be involved with this property, then I think the select board has to make this decision.
Don't get us wrong, as residents of Bellows Falls, and as 70% of the tax base, taxes, we're very interested in this, okay? We just don't want the village trustees to contribute additional funds over and above what the residents of Bellows Falls are already going to pay for this. So please be aware of that. But it is your building. It is the town's building, so
But that raises the question, is this only the select board voting on this? Because
Right.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So do we want to modify the motion to include the amendment that Rick has made?
Yes.
And, okay, so that's not a problem, but I also like to add some wording to that relieves the town of some liability and risk if they're gonna go in there and do any of the work. So they have to give us waivers of some sort,
Doesn't,
injury, because I don't want the townspeople to be responsible if somebody gets hurt in there, because there could be a lawsuit involved.
But
It
doesn't-
costs us a hell of a lot more than $58,000.
doesn't Hodgkins and Sons carry insurance when their people go in there?
They would
They
all
wouldn't be a
care for
part
the
of it.
demolition. for their-
Exactly. Oh, this is for the evaluation.
If they want to go in and do their thing go in and do their drawings or whatever they think they want to do, or figure out what they want to save, then they should relieve the town of any responsibility if someone goes in there and gets hurt. Something lets go in there and they get hit or something, they don't, it's all on them. It's not on us.
Is this a town committee, though, or no?
It's a town commission, yes, the Historic Preservation Commission, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
are they covered by our liability or not?
Anytime anybody enters any of our properties, right, that we have some liability. Somebody walks in the building here tonight, we have liability, so. But I think the issue here is we have previous notice about an unsafe condition, and I think Peter's concern is, based on that, we have probably a larger burden that we should try to make sure that we can at least try to alleviate that by having them sign a waiver and understanding that they're entering a facility that's not structurally sound.
Right, but do we have to put that in this resolution, or would it just be their condition of entering?
Well, that's up to you guys. If it's on the floor, I think you have to make that decision as an amendment or not.
Yeah.
I'm fine with adding that
Right.
as a condition.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
say with conditions, and then
With
define the
conditions
condition
of-
later? I don't know, just a suggestion.
I'd venture an addition to the amendment that's been made, that the wording states that they sign a waiver of liability for injury if they are to enter the building.
Yeah.
And then we can move on from there.
Okay.
Anybody have that in mind? Are you writing this down, Rick?
Trying to.
I see you scribbling.
I'm not very, can't write that fast, but
Okay.
What, why don't you tell us what you got there so far, Rick? Let's listen to it.
It's been changed 15 times.
Yeah.
That's right.
all right. So,
Okay.
the municipal manager would
I
work.
think you need to start with the original motion to adopt, to accept the $58,000 bid, and then add the additional wording onto that motion. So we have one motion to vote on.
All right. We move that the town accept the bid from Hodgkins and Sons Incorporated for $58,693 to demolish the building at 66 Atkinson Street.
Okay, and then
Okay.
have the manager work with
Municipal
the
manager
contractor
would work with
to
the
see if
contractor.
there are additional funding needed to
Right. Would work with the
save
con-
anything, and
Yeah.
if, then to get,
He's got it written down.
Yeah.
He's got it written down. Let me
Right. With the historical, the manager would work with the contractor and the Historical Preservation Commission to identify the significant historical elements and get an estimate on how much each of them would cost to preserve. That way we'd have a menu. We can say the stained glass window is worth, $5,000. The beams are worth $20. Whatever. So we could make a decision based on real information instead of anecdotal kind of guessing.
but you
And
need
then
to
the,
add
then the
Sorry,
waiver.
I digress.
a waiver to relieve the,
Okay.
then we're done.
All right. With conditions, with the further condition that the Historical Commission sign a waiver of liability for injuries that may be sustained in entering and working in the structure.
There we go. Now we're all set.
Okay, but did we first have to, because that was an amendment, and now that's one motion. Do we have to take Bonnie's
Do
off
you
the table?
withdraw, Bonnie, do you withdraw your original?
I withdraw the original motion.
Okay. So
And
now
And
we
I'll,
have one
I'll
motion
second
on
the
floor.
amended motion.
So, everybody got the
seconded.
motion clear in their mind, because I don't think we were on to try and read that again.
No, and I've seconded it.
Okay.
so-
Okay, it's been
The
seconded.
Motion's made and seconded, so, is there any further discussion, so we all understand? There is none?
Should I put a time element in there? This will happen within the next 3 weeks. Elijah, 2 weeks? Elijah, what feels realistic, or Scott?
Practicality purposes, if you're going to act upon this at a regularly scheduled meeting, your two meetings in October are the 6th and the 19th. So you would need to have all this information
By the
done
19th.
before the 19th. So if you had to appropriate additional monies, that would be the time to do that. And it would still give us enough time to get the building
All right.
complete.
How much time do you need, Scott, to make this happen?
We'll make it happen. If you tell us to have it done by the 19th, we'll have it done by the 19th.
Okay, then I add to my endless resolution here, amendment, that
We could add it by 5 o'clock
that
on the
the-
19th, since we meet at
Hang
6.
in there, hang in there, Rick.
the list of the identified historic elements and the cost for each be presented to the select board at our October 19th meeting. 20th. 19th?
That's the Tuesday, the 20th, or the 19th. They meet the First Wednesday and the third Tuesday.
19th.
Okay, 19th.
Right, but we
Yeah,
meet
but
on
the
a-
first meeting's on Wednesday, second's on
Second meeting's on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Don't make it the
Right.
20th, Jakes, we're not meeting that
We'll
night.
figure the date. Let's just leave it there.
Anyway, that's the
Late.
motion.
Okay, were we at discussion or not yet?
I'm just gonna, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I'm just going to say that, I mean, the price and the cost, I think we can get them in there by the 19th and get their list. I don't think the contractor is going to get numbers back to us by the 19th. That's going to be hard.
I don't think it'll be
You don't think
that
so?
difficult.
I don't think it's
Depends
gonna
on
be
how
that.
quick
Not
they
hard.
get their
I mean,
list
right now,
together.
they're down to a small construction window, so
You don't
I
give
worry
the,
they're,
the way to deal with that, I agree with you, Susan. The way to deal with that is to say the historical group has got 2 weeks to get this thing together so that Scott can give the specifics to the thing. So that's the way you need to deal with it.
All right.
It might be,
That's-
we can't take that stained window out, or it might be we can take it out, but if it breaks on the way out, you're on your own. You know, I mean, I'd love to save it also, I mean. but it-
Look.
I have just taken a stained glass window out of a church, okay?
Yep.
My construction guy refused to do it because he was concerned about doing damage to the window. And that was an easy one. That had a frame around it. So anyway, we found somebody that would do it, but it's just not easy removing a stained glass window.
Okay, any other further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion would say aye. Aye. All those opposed would say nay. Motion carries. Scott, you got your walking orders with everybody else, so we get that out of the way. Jeez. Thank God.
only Kathleen has to write it all down.
Well, Rick, if Rick could get it to Kathleen, yeah.
I'll draft it out. I'll write it up.
Okay, now we can move on to the real good business here.
this one should be easier.
Award bid for oil and propane.
Yeah, so a little bit of
It's in your packet.
here. The,
First part is over here.
Okay, thanks.
Demolition.
The original bids for this went out in August
yes,
and
that's
came
right.
back, and we had sent them out to a list of 10, and we only received one bid in the first round, so rejected that, resubmitted the bids, and asked Ally to call bidders and ask them specifically to bid, which she did, and after that second round of bidding, we still only received 2
To
bids.
identify certain elements.
I think what the concern is that because we're asking for a fixed price, and there's a lot of volatility right now in the marketplace, I feel like a lot of places chose not to bid. So that's why you saw a significantly, I think the last time we did this, we had 6 bids in the prior year, but this year, we were down to 2. So, and of the 2, the lower price was the one that I have recommended for you for action for this evening. And I can pass out the bid if you'd like to see it.
Mr. Chairman, on
Yes.
behalf of the village, I'd like to make a motion.
Well, this can be, because this is a joint bid, it includes the Bellows Falls Fire
it includes our
Station.
gallonage.
It's bid,
Right.
it's combined call,
Then
one
on
motion
behalf-
will fit for the whole board.
Then I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid of $2.39 a gallon.
Structure.
For 25,000 gallons of oil from Allen Brothers.
We'll
And
hear
we're
a
gonna-
second. Motion,
Just a point of information, we are going to be rebidding propane because we did not get any
That's what I
prices.
wanted to ask,
Yeah.
'cause it's
So
for
I
We're
just
going to go
mentioned-
back
yeah, it
out and
says right
rebid
there on the
propane.
thing, so.
So that will also happen.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to accept the bid from Allen Brothers for $2.39 a gallon for 25,000 gallons of fuel oil. Does anybody have the motion in mind? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Pardon? Stefan. Okay, Arpa funds update. A lot of reading there, folks.
Well, and this is just the beginning of a lot of,
You got that right.
yeah, these are interim guidelines, so, I've taken this approach, and I hope the boards understand and are not frustrated by this, that we are still under interim guidance from the Treasury Department, and you can see already how much volume, it's already circulating in terms of what you can do, what you can't do, and that's all based on the interim guidelines. The federal government has not given any indication as to when they're going to give final regulation. So with that as a precursor, I wanted to at least show you what VLCT has put out. I have this other lovely pages of guidance from the Treasury Department as well, which is a whole nother listing of their specific interim guidance. So it's going to be a while, to be honest, until I feel comfortable at least being able to tell you that we are at a point where we can start to have conversations about projects or start working on lists or at least soliciting input as to where we think we might want to spend money. With that being said, I at least wanted you to look at the attached spreadsheets because it does show for the town and for the village what our payments are going to be, and those are based on, we get payments direct as Vermont doesn't necessarily have a functioning county government. We have recognized county government, but it doesn't function as it does in other states. So there is a pass-through. That's why you see some of these payments being registered as county and some of them being paid as just direct payments to us as a municipality. I think the number you really need to look at is your bottom line if you go to the far right column. So the town will be eligible for $441,000. The village will be eligible for $886,000.
Saxon's River is also in there.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
Saxon's River gets
actually
100.
in there
Yeah.
as
I did
well.
not give you Saxon's River. I
No.
figured
Well,
at
we're
some,
going to look anyway.
I mean, I only highlighted for the joint board. I did not incorporate them,
No,
but you
I
can
know.
certainly add them if you'd like. So since they weren't at the table, I figured just for purpose of
Understood.
reporting.
And this is for all of these different programs and all payments that should be input.
This will be the direct payments, right. All of these are all ARPA-related payments, and they're doing them in different
Phases, yeah.
phases.
Yeah. Have any been received yet?
Yes. The first phase has been received.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
but we have segmented those in separate accounts. We're not going to do any action again until we get a final set of guidelines from the Department of Treasury, and at this point, nobody's been able to tell us when that might happen. So, I'm sorry, Kathleen has a question.
Can you just repeat the numbers so that everybody knows what town and what's village, because it was confusion last time during the minutes?
All right, so the total for the town from all sources of funds, right, for this ARPA funding is $441,534.15. All right, for the village, it's $886,356.63. And if Peter, you want me to read Saxon's River, or do you want to, for confusion, do you want to leave it off?
I think we should include Saxon.
Include it as well?
Yeah, right?
And Saxon's River is, their total would be, and I gotta read it across because I didn't highlight it, so give me a second here.
148.
Theirs is, let's see here, $148,239.38.
Searsburg is zero.
Just for giggles, yeah.
They were the only one that didn't take it.
Who was a zero?
Searsburg.
Said no.
Really?
They're
Why-
the only
that's
town in
interesting.
Windham County that said no.
What's the downfall of taking
That's why
it?
their next one after Saxon River is
But
zero.
why didn't they
But-
take it?
I don't know, but they decided not to take any of it.
There
It
was a
does-
deadline,
most
you
of
had
that
to
is-
apply
yeah.
online to be eligible to get
Mm-hmm.
in line, so to speak. So we did that. So maybe they just never applied online for whatever reason.
And Searsburg is mainly national park, the national forest.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There's
Oh,
not a
okay.
lot in Searsburg other than
Well, no,
the
but
Green
they do
Mountain.
have a town clerk and a small highway department. and,
Right,
you know,
they do, but,
They have like
and they
9
may
miles of
also be
road.
going through the Wyndham Regional Council. That was another option to
I
manage
thought
it.
Trump
But
might have.
They only have 100.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Is there any, in the short term, any reporting that has to be done, and we're on top of that? I thought I said something, I saw something about a November something.
We have to
Deadline.
give quarterly reporting if we spent money, and at this point, I will be reporting no activity. So it's
Okay.
just right.
Right, but I mean, we have to report zero. It's kind of like if you don't report, you get in trouble, so
Right.
even if it's zero. So the other thing was, I mean, most of this is sewer, water, broadband. So, I mean, the discussion really is with the village, what are your plans for any work on the sewer lines because the town can use their funds to repave. As far as I read, this might be interim, we don't know for sure.
Right.
But if you are digging up a street, we could potentially use some of those funds to pave over your sewer project, I believe.
Curbing comes to mind, granite.
Well, it has to be related to the sewer water
If
because,
you're repaving the
so.
street, sure.
Right, it
But
can't be a
anyway, so
standalone
that's-
improvement,
we
it
have
has to be related to that
coordinate what your
specific
plans
It's real
are.
infrastructure.
tricky while you work in there.
Right.
And they haven't really given us, as Scott said, a
Right.
definitive of what you can and cannot spend it for. So you gotta be careful going in there.
And I was a
You
little
put
bit
your foot in it.
surprised if you guys read the Vermont Digger that Burlington
Right.
City is going to propose to use ARPA funds for retention bonuses for police officers, which I guess, if you look at the guidelines, is potentially eligible, but it seemed a little bit
On the edge.
on the margin in terms of maybe where, again, that's just one thing that they're proposing to do, and I just saw that online, so.
That's okay, Arizona's wants to build a prison.
All right, well.
Well,
So-
run a sewer line to it, then they can do it, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No
All right,
sewer.
is
So
there any
anyway.
other questions or,
Yes.
Yes, Gary?
Yeah, so I just had a comment to clarify for Susan about Susan's comment on the infrastructure. Because we're a qualified census tract, other forms of infrastructure are allowed. For instance, anything that impacts the population negatively around COVID or anything pre-COVID that has prevented things that would improve the vibrancy in the population. So an example is if we had a lack of elderly or assisted housing, then funds could go towards that. If there was a restriction of, say we had destination tourism and the lack of the some infrastructure for that, a good example is the train station. It could go towards that infrastructure. So pretty much anything that we can draw a nexus to a negative impact on the community that's infrastructure. Basically, if you're not a qualified census tract, you have to make a case for why you're spending the money and how it's with COVID. For a qualified census tract, the assumption is that it's qualified. If there's something that we put in for the premise, you don't have to prove that you qualify for it. So just wanted to clarify, we do have more flexibility with infrastructure because of that.
Okay, that's good to know, thanks.
Any further discussion on it? Rick?
Question, it's probably in here. Scott, when do we have to spend this money by?
24.
Well, I think the first tranche, they said you need to have some spent by 2023, and then it extends beyond that. So the county money goes out now till 24. So there's different deadlines for the different tranches of payment.
Okay, thanks.
So we have time. Yeah, we're not under a great sense of, we have to move quickly.
Good.
But if you are questioned, that's sort of why we've been going slowly at this point.
Okay, any other questions on the subject?
Oh, sorry, one last thing. Saxon's River not being represented here, they will spend the money will go directly to the trustees. They will decide what to do with it?
All of the monies that are here go directly to their automatic ACH transfers. They go right into your budget.
Okay.
You don't get a check, you just get a nice, from the bank, they tell you have some money from Uncle Sam, and it appears.
Great.
Okay, let's move on to the tax sale information that is in your packet. There's a lot of stuff in there. I don't know if anybody can decipher it.
I know, I apologize for some of that because there's
the notes there don't really dictate whether, there's agreements, whether they've been broken or what. We don't know. And there is a policy in there that states that, I'm guessing they may have waited for the 2 years of unpaid taxes before they started to think about putting them on tax collection. But you can see there's a ton of stuff in there to decipher.
The The people that say with agreement have been keeping their payments
So they're current.
current. That's why they're crossed out, and there is just a note to say agreement. So they are in arrears, but they have been maintaining and paying on an agreement. The others that are here are past due and are not performing. So, and then there's quite a
So-
few that are old with personal property and other.
You know, you say they're in arrears, but just making payments, but if you read the first thing on the reasonable payment agreement, a reasonable payment agreement is one which is designed to achieve payment in full of delinquent tax balances within the next year, which ends in the following year. So if they're just picking at their 4 years' worth of taxes, they're not in jive with the agreement, I don't think.
None of the agreements that I'm aware of would be paid in full by one tax year.
So-
For whatever reason, that was not followed procedurally. So I have quite a few agreements that are extending over multiple years
So
that are not.
These are the ones that I think we need to look at, and I don't know if we, rather than us sitting here as a board trying to figure out which is what and how is who or whatever, maybe it'd be better if we got together with you and the finance office and a couple of representatives from each board, maybe, and go in there and cipher this out, then we can go back to our individual boards and try and explain it out, and at that meeting, they can decide whether they want to have it, or we can decide tonight whether we want to proceed with a tax sale. And in the meantime, we'll get this stuff hassled out for our next joint board meeting.
Well, yeah, to be honest with you, the agreements, like I said, the ones that I've been aware of, and I haven't entered into any since I've been here, so I've inherited the ones that are here, did not follow that guideline to where they would be paid within 1 year.
So they can technically be put up for tax sale. That's what that
You
means.
certainly have that, based on
So,
your
I
policy,
mean-
you have that ability.
Peter, I have a question.
Yep.
The first grouping says village, but then you look at all these that go asterisk with town,
With town.
asterisk with town. What does that
Yeah,
mean?
that's what I said, it's.
I don't understand. I'm assuming that's supposed to be the village delinquencies, but it says with town, with town, with town.
They have agreements that they've been paying. That, like, if you look at that first page, it says with town, there was an
These are all
agreement.
agreements?
The ones that say,
current, are they?
Everyone that says with town has an agreement with the town?
It doesn't,
No,
with that
no, no,
agreement,
no.
it
there are
says-
some below the $2,000 threshold, so some of those also, as you can see, those are town thresholds, the village does not. I don't have a delinquent policy from the village, the only one I'm going by is what the town policy is.
And I
Yeah,
don't
they're-
understand ones that aren't property, like Green Mountain Specialties, which of course is $5,441. We've never done anything to try and collect, and they're not even there anymore because
That's
the property's
gone.
not
I
there.
mean, that was a.
Some of these have to be,
Robinson
they're
paper.
beyond, they're just being, they need to be taken off.
Taken on.
Or how, have we done anything to pursue them in the courts through collections? I mean, I'm just saying the monies, I know that some of this
Speci-
probably need to be abated, got rid of because it was after they were evicted, but prior to their eviction, they had delinquencies, and they still have business, so they should still be pursued.
I'm not aware of us pursuing anybody on any kind of.
We're not, but we
right.
used to, according to the office. When I talked to Pam, she said they used to
Right.
take people to small claims court for things under $5,000.
I don't know when that stopped, but it hasn't been recent.
Yeah.
Right, it's been a period of time where that has not occurred.
Scott, the total
So-
is, sorry, Peter, one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
$531,000, is that, that's the total delinquent taxes?
For the town, according to the sheet.
I think when you add up all of the interest and penalty,
Right.
which is, I think, where that number expands dramatically.
Yeah, look how
Wow.
much, well, go down a bit, since interest is 107,382 and penalty is 26,770, so that would drop that down to, say, what, 400,000?
Okay.
I think that, you know,
Still
the,
amazing.
I
how
know.
much-
Peter,
Jeez.
Peter,
Other towns do
the,
this every year.
Okay,
it would
wait a
se-
minute, one at a time. Go ahead, Jake.
It would seem to me that forming another committee to go over this stuff is kind of unnecessary. We have a policy here that says $2,000, okay? And I think, as I read through these, there were a number of them, you know, like owned by the town, you know, gone dead, out of business, whatever.
Right.
No longer in existence. I think that I would hope that the at our next meeting, you could come back with a specific list of recommended tax sales,
I could,
okay?
right.
And even if there's something that's a little bit under 2,000, if this is a chronic issue, then, I would just assume, because there's a couple of them that were 1,800, 1,900, something like that. This with town, the village list, and all of them have with town. Then you got the town list that has a lot of duplication in it. Kind of, if you added them together, they might already equal 2,000. I don't know, but I think it would be better for us to write off stuff that's kaput, gone, and have a specific recommendation on those properties that we should proceed on. And, because convening a committee, it just takes a lot more of Scott's time rather than just dealing with the list with the staff.
Well, I guess I have a couple of specific questions. The first one would be about the previous agreements and whether or not you want to honor that, or do you want to just tell people that you have to go by the policy, and that even though past practice has not honored that going forward, we are going to do that, so they will have to be current by May 10th, or they'll be in arrears and subject to tax. That's the first question that I have, because we have not followed that consistently. So that's the first question. And the second question, as Jiggs has explained, is we do have quite a few accounts that need to be cleaned for a variety of reasons, right? People are deceased, the entity is gone with no assets, and just to continue to pile on interest and penalty is a fool's errand. We're never going to see money.
There's a couple,
So-
when you go to the abatement hearings, the ones that I've been, there's two names that ring a bell with me that I don't see here at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if they're abated, they're not past
weren't-
due.
they weren't abated.
Okay, all right.
To an extent.
Yeah, but I think we should honor existing agreements.
Yeah, I think we have.
I would think it
If
would
they
create
get their end of the bargain.
create a mess if we tried to.
Do those agreements exist on paper? How are they recorded?
Not well.
They're
All right,
not
I'll dig up what I
contracts?
can dig up.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't believe they were done as promissories or specific. I'm being facetious, but it's a little bit tricky to kind of find out.
And you're supposed to
They
pay
were not done
the agreement
consistently
plus
by
the
one
agreement.
process, so that's
Yeah.
why I'm
All
saying.
right, so it's hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think going forward, I think we need to get a motion to either, or not to proceed with the tax sale, which will probably take place in the spring, because it takes at least 6 months for them to take all the information down.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
No, you
Oh.
can't.
Oh.
It's town only. Village
No,
doesn't,
village-
village doesn't do tax sales. We
Yes,
never
they
have.
do.
We've
Ray
never done it
Ray
before,
Masuka's done both of them.
but we've never done it before. It always used to be town. So it can be.
It's a combination. They
All right,
can do
well, I'm
it.
fine with that then. Go ahead, Jiggs.
All right, I'll make a motion that the joint board or whatever proceed with a tax sale and ask the village, the town village manager to come back to our next meeting with a recommended list of properties to be put on the sale.
Okay.
And a recommendation on what properties we need to eliminate. Or unless, can you eliminate them anyway?
Or forgive?
I believe they'll have to go to BCA to be formally
Yeah, right.
abated.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I will
And
give
I-
you a list of properties
A
recommended
list that should go
for
to the,
abatement.
yeah, okay.
That I think we can do, because we normally do a BCA before we do a joint meeting anyway, so I'll have that.
Do we have a second to the motion?
A second.
All right. It's on the table for discussion. Rick, you got your hand up, and then Sue.
Yeah, if you look in the newspaper, our neighboring towns do this every year, and we reward people for not paying their taxes, in effect, and we serve as a interest-free bank for people.
Yep.
And I think it's really a disservice to those of us who pay our taxes on time, are footing the bill for all these people, and I don't think it should happen. I think it should happen regularly, the way it does in other towns.
It was supposed to, but
It was
we've had
supposed to.
Yeah.
changes.
Tax
been a few-
administration deal with it.
Yeah. Sue,
No, my question is, our next joint meeting, when is that? I think that might be
December,
true.
it's
something?
in be December.
maybe
We'd
we-
have to figure out a time because of the holidays, but
29th, that's not
No,
one point.
I think it is.
We could
Yeah.
schedule.
but I'm just saying, is that too, I mean, how long would it take for this list to get together? Because can't we, your next board meeting individually?
Oh, yeah, I
make
think
that
we can do
agreement,
it.
and
The
we
boards
can,
can-
instead of
yeah.
waiting till December, so we
Right.
can push this quicker?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd like to.
Yeah, we
Agreed.
need some time, and then, we need a little bit of time in October to clean it and make it presentable. It is kind of chaotic
So
where
November,
it is.
like maybe the first November meeting of each board?
And then I think for the November meeting of each board, we should have that with
Yeah, 'cause
with
I- I
a
think we
recommended
really
list
need
of
to push this
abatements.
Faster than by the end, our next meeting.
Okay, so you want, that's a friendly amendment from Susan.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other
Thank you.
further discussion?
Oh, sorry, one item. The legal expense, you've told us at previous meetings that the legal expenses can add up on this stuff. Is there a
By
point?
statute, it's 15%, I believe, is what the current statute is for that,
That goes to the lawyer
Mhm.
of every transaction,
of recovery, is
Yeah,
my
per-
understanding.
yeah, exactly.
recovery. Okay, so the big people, the people who owe $10,000, is there any percentage, well, eliminating the small people because we'll spend more on legal than we would get back? So is there a line that we can draw, that ask you to draw, that we're,
Well, that's why there's a
This
$2,000,
Limit,
okay,
yeah.
and is that,
because the boards have previously said don't spend a lot of money going after small amounts, because you
And-
do spend a lot of legal fees, and it's expensive.
in your time? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. 2,000 will stay
Yep.
then.
Okay, let's take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of proceeding with a tax sale, as the motion states, would say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Move on to item 7, which is the last one, will be discussed updates on option for retail marijuana.
So I put this in your packet because the Cannabis Control Board recently reached out to both the town and the village just in a informational way, which raised some concern or just conversation about what the current state of the law is. So I incorporated all of the legislative wrap-up from VLCT, and if you go to page 12, you can see the specific items that relate to cannabis. And there were quite a few actions that did take place. I think that there are a couple of things that I think potentially impact us going forward. You know, there's still this question of fees, and you can see the language about that and how that might impact decisions about whether or not you wanted to pursue retail. There's also, again, a voter proposal option for this that you can, again, look at your annual meetings if you so choose. And then there's still the issue of whether or not, going forward, if you wanted to participate with a tax-specific, which you'd have to then go and apply for additional, that 1% local sales tax option, which right now we don't have. So that's the status as it currently stands.
And if you did the local tax, that would be on everything. You can't say just on cannabis. So I don't see
Right, it's
merchants
not
being
everything.
happy
Is it just the
about that.
businesses that pay that tax? Just the businesses? I know the village.
It's tax on
trustees-
all sales in a municipality,
Right.
so it's all
The village trustees
transactions.
determined that we didn't want to impede recovering businesses after COVID.
Right.
With this sort of thing. So
Mhm.
we did not agree at this point. I don't know where the select board stands at this point.
It's all or nothing.
Right, yeah.
And-
And I don't see that flying very
Yeah.
well.
No.
Not here.
And the idea of putting it up to the people, which is happening in other towns, seems like the most democratic approach. I for one, would love to have the people decide this, and it could be done at the March meeting.
You do have the right to do that at your annual meeting, and really what you're doing is just permitting retail. And that's basically, you're opting in at that point, but you're not gaining that 1% tax. unless
Right.
you
I'm just-
specifically incorporated that in your,
It's just, yeah, do we want retail cannabis within the town limits or not? And that would be the question that we'd put to the voters.
Can we get that on the warrant?
well, I
for the
think both
meeting?
boards would have to look at that, I would think, right? Because you'd have to have it on a town meeting and then potentially on a village meeting.
Considered it, but it was declined.
Yep, and we can reconsider it again next
Right.
year if we wish. But
I
the
mean,
town
I'm all
does
for
the
a
same.
public vote. On
Yep.
ballot is.
I think it'd be better at
Bonnie's talking.
I think it'd be better with the town, the town vote, because then you've got the village as well as the.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
So
town-
if
town vote.
if we put it on the warrant for the March town meeting, and the town votes for it, does the village still have the option to say, no, we don't want it right within the village, or no?
I don't think.
Hmm.
No, it's just townwide, that's all.
Yeah.
I
It's
believe at
townwide.
that point, the decision's been made, but you still would have zoning and other controls
Right.
for land use purposes, but
Right.
there would not be, I don't think, and
It does state in here that we will be, that the municipalities that host a cannabis establishment will receive a fee paid to the state by applicants. So it's gonna come out of the applicant's fee. So whatever but they determine the fees, the set fee. I don't know if
Correct.
we determine if it's the same as the application fee, or if we receive anything left over.
there's been no other guidance from the state, so
Yeah.
it could be a pittance or it could be substantial. I
So
just
it might
don't know.
It might mean
Right.
revising the fee schedule for applicants for cannabis.
For businesses,
And
yeah.
I think the other thing I just wanted to point out, because I've been asked by a couple of smart aleck kids, is there is a prohibition against consuming cannabis in public places. It's in the
That's
law.
correct, yeah.
Because a couple
It's
kids have
6
said,
feet,
oh,
I
it's
think so.
legal, you can't do anything
6
about it,
feet
so.
from you have to
Just want to
from
make
your
sure,
door?
if you got a smart aleck teenager at home, you might want to just point that out.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
still
And-
illegal.
and
Don't
under-
walk around the street.
And under age 21 is illegal, right?
What you do in your own
Yeah.
home is
So-
up to you, but yeah,
Yeah.
you can't walk down Atkinson Street
Right.
and
Yep.
enjoy yourself, so.
Okay.
Well, I think we should have it on the town meeting warrant when the time comes.
I know
Yeah,
the,
your warrant,
I know the last time,
warrant.
Sue reminded me that when we voted on it 5 years ago, I think, it was for medical marijuana.
Right, yeah.
And that got
Yes.
voted down,
Right.
not
that's
to
5
have it in
years
the
ago.
town, so,
Right, this
This
is a very different.
Yeah, I know.
And
Deal.
retail.
so. And there's an ordinance too that prohibits it within certain feet of public
Right,
buildings, et
schools
cetera,
and
so.
all, yeah.
Right,
It
exactly.
kind of limits where it can be put. Now, maybe out in, Route 5 or someplace out in the woods where they gotta put it, but that's.
Yeah,
that's
the
kinda-
Vermont Country Store might want to get in on it.
Maybe that's
Maybe
another
next to
name for
Smoke
it,
and
right?
Bowls, there you go.
I like it.
Integrated marketing.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Who brought the pack today? Come on. All right, let's move along here, unless there's a further discussion, no? All right, review agenda items for next meeting. We know we're gonna have a tax sale information on it, hopefully.
Yes.
Oh, but this is for the next joint
Yeah,
board.
next joint.
We're gonna be doing the tax sale stuff in November, individual
Yeah,
meetings,
but-
right?
right.
But
We'll have an
yeah,
update.
right.
We'll have an update for you.
There'll probably be something there.
So. and
If
there-
there's any
you can-
cannabis
is there-
update,
Is there anything
we'll have
else
an
that
update on that,
anybody
too.
can think of? If not, then think something cross after we leave the meeting tonight, just let Scott know and we'll
Yeah.
get it on there, between Deb and I. Okay, anybody else? No? Yeah, maybe? Okay.
It's December, we're not thinking that far.
I know.
Okay, let's go, review and approve order bills and warrants. They've been passed around. Take a motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Other business, start with Elijah.
Yeah, I have some too.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I think the red one's made it.
Oh,
No,
somebody
no.
Yeah,
missed.
Susan didn't get it.
This side,
Oh, okay.
Well, you're gonna get both. Just return it.
Do we have other business or not?
Elijah, have anything? Other business? Wade?
No, I'm all set.
Jigs?
I think you all received this, or I think, Peter, you received this, replacement of trees for Green Street petition.
Yep. When I was gonna bring it up when I didn't receive it. No, I have not received that, but I was gonna bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the village president and the town chair did not get it.
Jigs, do you have anything?
No.
Bonnie?
Yeah, just a question. When is the water going to be fixed? Does anybody know?
Well, we are working with the state on some chemical treatment, and we're trying it this week, but then we're going to start flushing next week, so I'm a little bit concerned that we might fix it and then stir up all the debris that's in the lines and get some discolored water anyway. It's basically just heavy metals that are coming through because there's been so much rain. So there's a heavy, it's not anything that's health-related, it's just manganese and something else that's in the water. That's why you're getting that slight discoloration.
Pretty dark.
It's been going on
This
for weeks.
slight
It's been at least,
discoloration.
where I'm at, it's been almost a month now. But it took a process. We had to take samples to the state. The state had to give us approval to do chemical treatment, so unfortunately, it took time. So now they've given us an approval, so we're going to start some things this week and hopefully see some improvement, so.
Okay, all right, thank
yes,
you.
Yes.
I'm still drinking it directly
Jeff?
from the tap.
Yeah, me too.
I'll come back to the tree thing, but just to get everybody else. Deb, you have anything?
No, I don't think so, no.
Rick?
Nothing.
Stefan?
I like to take a bath every day, and will you feel bath every day?
Reference Route 12, it's looking like that will be going out the bid probably mid-October. And the way I understood the memo or interpreted it would be, don't plan on driving on it till spring. That's Route 12 in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So I see there's been some activity stepped up on the bridge, including some night work.
Right.
Yeah.
It's we've approached them a couple times to get approval for funds to have police to help with traffic control, and nobody's been able to give us any monies. So we're a little frustrated with it too.
They did have traffic control last night, though, because I went past
Yes.
them last
Well,
night.
Yes.
not police.
Not police.
No, flaggers.
They've got a guy with a paddle that you can barely see,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, well,
he's
there was a floodlight when I went by, but I don't know.
and he doesn't have a stop paddle. He just has a caution paddle, which he runs to me and does this. Because he did the
Oh my
same thing
God.
last night too. So
No, they're not.
was this a local contractor perhaps who might have? I'm sorry.
Sue, do you have anything?
I'm all set.
Okay,
I'll be there.
let's,
I'm not finished, buddy.
all right, let's get to the
Peter.
replacement trees for
Excuse me,
Green Street.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, you have some? Oh, okay.
Yeah, on a brighter note, we do have the October holiday coming up of Halloween. The clock tower would look wonderful in orange.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
On that subject, I have had comments that nobody likes the colors. I've heard that.
Yes,
from,
that's what.
but whatever. All right, Sue.
I'm all set, other than, I agree, we're just like a little mini New York City with the clock tower.
With the changing colors.
With the changing colors, so I think people will get used to it.
But I've had people say, I didn't realize you had a clock tower, because I said, well, what'd you notice? Well, we noticed a different color. So I think it's great.
Okay, are we all set? Let's. There's Jiggs has received. I didn't receive it, but my name's on here. But Jiggs got a notice, and I think Scott may have gotten one about the replacement trees for Green Street. Some have been cut down because they disrupted the sidewalk. Now, to be truthful, there is a $5,000 tree planting fund. The money's dedicated to that. Can't be used for anything else. The trees that have been cut and trimmed to date currently have been charged into the highway department. So there is $5,000 there. Now, when these trees were first planted, there was a tree committee, and they went out, picked out the trees, and they were all flowering. I think they were apple and pear, I'm not sure. Crab apple trees, so that really, that's what turned the people onto it. So I don't know what you want to do with this petition. They're asking to have them replanted. Scott, I think, has replied to them about, it may take a while before it happens because you can't plant them at this time of year. And the other thing is we need to have someone that knows how to plant those trees because that's what killed them the last time. They mounded the mulch up around them instead of whatever they're supposed to, and so that we lost some trees in that race, which ended up being cut down anyway.
Did
So.
they end up affecting the sidewalks too?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said. The trees cut down because they were heaved up. I mean, they really popped
Yeah.
the roots popped them up, so they had to go. But
Your tree warden's here, too.
Yeah, we want to hear from the tree warden.
certainly, if he so desires to speak.
Thank you. I guess the best way for me to put this is 802-289-7327. Call me 24/7. I'll talk to you I'll talk to anybody as long as they want to talk about traffic, trees, dogs, or kids. Spring is the best time to replace trees. The trees that were taken out on Green Street were all lindens, which are infamous sidewalk lifters. Anyway, I keep a green list for tree replacement. I keep a hot list for tree removal. It's an ongoing process. Right now, through the end of the year, I would much sooner concentrate on our new Fireman's Park. We have a lovely new fir tree in there. We are putting some Lombardy poplar in. Come spring, Green Street is definitely on my radar. We took out this past year, we took out trees at, I believe, I'm remembering the addresses of 5, 32, and 34 on Green Street. Those became hot ticket items to get the lindens out of there, to stop lifting up the sidewalk. I definitely want to replace trees in the green belt on there. Much more to my interest are getting more trees on Henry Street where we have the gray belt. That, I think, is my top priority, but Green Street is right behind there. But as I say, 802-289-7327, before you put a lot of energy into circulating petitions, call me first. I would love to talk to all of my friends and neighbors about more and better trees and tree planting in the villages. And yes, by all means, trees. Trees for Rockingham, trees for Bellows Falls, trees for Saxon's River.
Peter,
Go ahead, Sue.
isn't this something that would be a town discussion? I mean, the select board discussion in our budget time? I mean, we also
Yeah.
have to factor in what's happening with the park, but also the invasive species. And I think we might need to have a discussion in our budget about
No, that's
adding
going
money
forward,
into
because
this.
they
So,
say there's only 5,000 in that
Right.
existing,
think-
and it hasn't been spent, but as
Right.
you said, it's spring, so we'll have time to work through
Yeah.
our budget season if we want to add to that total.
right.
I will also like to add, currently, the going rate for new trees, currently, last time I checked, was between $1,200 and $1,800 per.
Oh, yeah, not cheap.
Because they're not they're not seedlings, they're bigger than that.
Yeah, usually they go with 2-inch circumference. Okay, anything else to be brought before this august committee?
I'm tired.
Or December committee, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that being said, there's no executive session that we need, I don't think. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here.